Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today we're working on my 2014 F15 X5 with the N55 motor. I bought this car with 97,000 miles on it, and it is making a howling sound when you come to a stop. Also, there's a distinctive burning oil smell, enough that you can sometimes see a cloud of smoke, like a very minor cloud of smoke coming out through the grill and whatnot if you're idling for a long time. So telltale valve cover gasket leak. So we're going to be changing out the valve cover gasket in this video, and there's going to be a follow-up video where I show you guys how to change out your PCV valve that's integrated into the valve cover. So I'm going to get this cover pulled off here. It's one of the first things you're going to have to do. So we'll set that aside. And if you notice right here, there's an integrated PCV valve built into this valve cover. That thing can split over time, and normally you have to change out the entire valve cover. The howling noise comes from your PCV valve failing over time, which is integrated into the actual valve cover. It splits, and then you got excess pressure being pushed out through your crank and rear main seals. So that's one reason you may be removing your valve cover, or maybe it's just mileage and your valve cover is leaking. In my case, I have both. So I purchased the following valve here. It's an aftermarket part. You have to actually saw that one off and replace your PCV valve. This can split, and that's where your problem lies. So we're gonna get this valve cover removed to do this, plus tackle the oil leak. I looked online and I didn't find any N55 valve cover DIYs on YouTube. Plenty of N54 ones, but nothing for an N55. So we gotta get all this stuff out of the way. This should be similar to any N55 powered car. Alright, so I'm going to go after some of the stuff that's right in my face here, including this tube, this sensor, and these screws here. It looks like that should be removed. Probably just make life easier. It looks stiff and brittle. I don't want to break it, so rather than leave it on that pipe, I'm going to remove it. Starting with a pick tool here. Like so. Alright, so that's a little stiff, and I don't like how much pressure I have to put this way to get this out of here, and I don't like how hard this is to push that way, so I'm going to remove this charge pipe. I'm going to loosen these clamps, take off this bolt so that it has some slack. So you see there's a flat head right here. One down here. Let's remove this. Like that, you just squeeze the sides, but be really careful, it can be brittle. We have a 10 mil right here. This seems to be like it's going to be in the way, so what we'll do is we'll try to route this out of here. So this clips off, like so. I'd like to remove that. So I'm going to see if I can get this out of the way. It just seems like one of those things that could be problematic. I'm going to take this off as well. Feels like this charge pipe is just clipped in to part of the valve cover. Yep. Okay. Now that we've created the slack we're looking for, I started to pull this forward. I'm going to go after this now. There you go. That's a good way to get some slack on this without stressing this out. Now we'll insert our pick tool. There we go. Got it off in one piece. It's a little finicky. There's actually a clip on the bottom that I didn't even know about, but it looks like once you get the top three off, you can get that off in one piece. So I'd recommend that you disconnect your charge pipe, get yourself a needed slack. So let's set this aside now. That's what it looks like, FYI. So now I'm going to try to pop the pipe out. As you saw, I get okay with it. These little rubber grommets are for your cover. Set those aside. Now, carefully pull this forward. I see an electrical connector back there. Over here, there's an electrical connector. Alright, so to remove it, you basically just push here. So I just use that if you saw underneath. Sometimes you can't push that enough. We're going to remove this charge tube or intake tube now, set it aside. This air box has gotten in my way a number of times already. Just gotta go. So, like I said, we're moving the air box now, so I'm gonna put this pick tool here. I'm just gonna create some gap. Like so. Take this off. It's a way better design than the old E70. I'm coming over here. It just pops out, basically. It's a little different than the E70, that's why I was putting the screwdriver in there, but you can just basically pull that out. Get some harnesses clipped into the air box. You can see them, these guys right here. I'm wondering if this air box just lifts off. We'll try. So basically 3 points. 3 points where it clicks in. You have 1, 2, 3. So we're going to take this off. Setting that aside. Now if you notice looking back there, this harness is going to be an issue. There's a clip that I'm pushing from back here. You basically put your finger through it and push, and then you can unclip that. So over on this side, there's actually 3 T20 Torx. I don't know if this is a clip or not, like if there's a way to unclip from this, but I'm removing these to find out. You may have to do this, or if there's a clip mechanism, I'll show you. So I'm actually jumping ahead here. I had to pull a few things out of the way, get to this last bolt here that holds on that harness cover. So I will show you when I'm putting things back together so you know what I took out and what needs to be removed. It was just unreasonably difficult trying to get that last bolt out. And I figured there's no way they designed it that way. Let's just create the room by removing a little bit of cowling. It wasn't too bad at all, just a couple minutes to actually get that last bolt there, and also just give us more access. I'll probably take this bar out too, just because it'll make the job a lot easier. It's only 2 bolts. By the way, this is a T25 actually, not T20, but I did just use a T20 to get the angle to get it out on that last one, but it's actually a T25. And I snapped this cover off here that held these down. These were sitting in there. I snapped it off so I can get those out, and I'll show you when I'm putting it back together how that actually goes together. So now we'll lift this up out of the way. Like I said, I'm going to remove that just because it's just right there and it'll make my life easier. By the way, those are 15s. That's a strange size for a BMW. I'm gonna zip tie those up and out of the way. All right, now there's these O2 sensor connectors here. We'll snap them out of the valve cover. Push this gray connector back, and you'll be able to pull it out like so. We'll set that over there. This connector comes off here. Set that over to the side, and I think we gotta take this off because it won't in the way of pulling the valve cover up because it bolts down through to the head. It seems like anyway. Now this harness here. We'll disconnect the coils. So let's start disconnecting these coils. There's a bracket here that's in my way. It's a T30. That's what holds your O2 sensor connections. The fuel injection connections are similar to an N55, where you just have a little peg. Stick your tool in there and then you can pull it out. It's kind of hard to show, but there's not enough room to just rock it out of the way. You do have to use a pick tool. There's a shot of the fuel injector. I'm just putting a pick tool right here. Right there. Just sticking it in there to remove it. So I'm doing that here. You can see on the N54 you can kind of just rock it out of the way, but there's not enough room here. It's on an angle. Basically, like so. Need two hands for this, but there you can see I'm inserting the pick tool. Now, there's some 8mm ground wires that I want to take out. They're right here. So here's the 8mm ground wire that I'm removing. Pop this off. I'm gonna put this right back here so I don't lose it. We'll completely set this harness off to the side. Now we'll go after these fuel injection lines. By the way, you should have your battery disconnected ideally so that if it does try to wake up and cycle the fuel pump, you don't get fuel pressure. These should be 14 mils if they're like the N54. My car sat overnight, so it shouldn't have a big spray, but be prepared if your car has pressure. There may be some fluid in here, and you'll want to keep a rag there. That wasn't so bad. They redesigned this so that the bracket actually holds down the injector at the same time. Good design, so you don't have to hold the other end of the injector. You can tell they definitely improved things. So it's a better design, but it kind of feels more finicky in some respects. Like the way they angle the injectors and whatnot, and how everything's kind of conked around here on weird angles. But, you know, I'm sure there's some reason for it. I think on the earlier N55s, this was actually a nut too, and you could remove it, but it looks like you gotta do the whole rail now. We'll go after this plug here, this plug here, all these plugs, to give us access to removing the rail. If it's like the N54, this is a 17, these are 11s. Let's see. I'm loosening this first before I do these bolts here so that it can hold the rail for me. That was the 17 as suspected. We have our electrical connector at the back. You just basically squeeze right there to remove it. Alright, both 11 mils are out. Oh no, I'm missing a couple more. So just like the N54, I know I'm going to say this a whole bunch, but you slide this over and you can rock it up. Alright, so you basically stick a screwdriver in there, rotate up. Now we can go for the last two bolts. And there's the whole thing out of our way. All right, so these valve cover bolts are E10 inverted Torx. They should stay in the valve cover. You gotta get the rest by hand. Got these two E7 Torx here. I'm sure they don't allow the valve cover to come up. At least I think. Not 100% sure, but just in case, those are being removed. So here's the valve cover off the car. I could see that it was leaking at the bottom section, right by the exhaust manifold. So it's kind of soft and supple up at the front. That's how it usually goes. The one side is so-so, but kind of plasticky. And then around the back, it gets really stiff. And then the part that gets the most heat cycled, which is right above the turbo, is like hard plastic. Which is right here. It could snap if I just try to yank on it. There it is. This part's really hard. You can hear it. Sounds like plastic. So, here's a roll gasket. Stiff, but ready to snap if I bend that. Now on this, which is unique to the N55, you have these three middle gaskets. When you get this valve cover cleaned up and ready to put back on the car with the fresh gaskets, and I'll show you reassembly here, and I'll especially go over the cowl section like I talked about, but I'm gonna now cut to another video which should be posted at the same time or shortly after on how to correct the PDC issue that's on this car. So I'm gonna clean this up, then we're gonna swap out the PCV valve built into the valve cover. But you'll see me coming back once that job is done with the gaskets back on it, ready for reinstallation. Here's the valve cover kit I bought. I'll put a link in the description as to where I bought it. It's an L-ring 299.770. It was pretty cheap. I think it was like 20 bucks. But I'll put a link in the description. I got it from ECS Tuning. So let's get that opened up and put it on the valve cover now. Use some dabs of silicone to hold things down. So the coils at the back are getting in my way. Just to make it easier to install, I'm going to remove them. Okay, double check that went well. The gasket stayed in position. So basically you saw that I kind of kept it over to the right, cleared it, and then brought it down, settled it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and start tightening down those bolts. Just get them bottomed out and then we'll torque them. Time to start torquing the valve cover bolts. 6 foot-pounds. I'm going to start from the center and then work my way over in a diagonal pattern. Alright, like I said, I never showed this part when I was taking things apart because I wanted to find the easiest way to get this done. But it's time to put these harnesses back into position. So first of all, you gotta route it cleanly here. Like so. You have this, stucks in here, snaps down there. Now we'll bring these over here. Now we have this. You gotta kind of tuck this underneath first. And then straight down. There we go. So that gives you an idea. I didn't show me taking that apart while I was experimenting on the easiest way to get this job done. And it definitely involves removing that cowling, which I'm going to show you as I'm reinstalling it, what needs to come out. Bringing this PCV line back over. The intake line here. While reassembling, I noticed that there was an open port here, and I thought that was quite odd. Supposedly the older N55 cars use that as a vacuum port connection, but on the newer N55 cars, the later generation, they don't have that. So it's just an open port. So if you're getting to that point wondering what that is and you have a newer generation N55, don't worry, it's meant to be open. Quite strange, but I guess it's just a carryover part. So I'm just going to continue the reassembly now. Restoring the strut bar now. Now next you want to bring this piece of cowling over. Right here. This is what I didn't show you in the beginning because I wasn't sure how much had to be removed. There's a couple 10 mils here and the rest are Torx. There's a plastic push pin right here. There's two 10 mils. Got some T25 Torx up in here. Lay this piece into position. Bring over this filter assembly. That just clicks into place. Alright, so we're all back together. I'm going to give it a start. The audio was really blown out in that clip, so I figured I'd just do a quick voiceover. Basically what I'm saying is It took a few seconds to build up fuel pressure. That's why there was a little bit longer crank than usual. That's normal because you had your fuel lines disconnected. Don't worry about that. And just wanted to conclude the video by saying thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more content like this. In my opinion, the N55 valve cover job is quite different from the N54. I wouldn't really use that as a guide, and I didn't find any other guides on YouTube on the N55 specifically, so I'm glad to put this out there to help out some people. It's not a bad job overall. Should take you a few hours total if you take your time. So yeah, thank you for watching. Look out for more content on this car and on the N55 in general. Take care. Wow.